Steve, Bob, step down. Everybody who's on the committee. Our committee members are Renee Santelari, our chair. Renee, give a wave. Geraldine Boynton, Bill Calla, seated here on my left. Bob Clark, acting principal of Fairport High. Carrie DeBose, Barb Fiala, Susie Meyer, Duncan McKechnie, who was one of the young people who was just singing, Paul Myers, Tom Pullman, and Beth Puckett. Thank you so much to the selection committee. Thank you very much. I want to introduce some school board members. Two of them I'm not introducing because they're in the program, but our school board works harder than any school board I know. They work 25, 30 hours a week. And I think, what are those salaries again? What are they? For no pay. And our school board members always come out tonight, so I'm trying to spy any of our school board members who are here, and I'm sure there are some. Oh, there's Mr. Peter Forsgren. Would you stand, Peter, please? Peter Forsgren. And, oh, Joyce Kostick. Joyce, here in the front. Beth Puckett, who's on the committee as well. Beth Puckett's on our committee. Anybody else help me out on that? Okay. Now, one of the cool things about our tradition is that our past winners come out. They know how important and special tonight is. So we have a number of past honorees who are with us tonight. I've spied a number of them, but I'm not going to speak their names. I'm simply going to ask them to stand, all of our past honorees, so we can give them an acknowledgement. Would you please stand? Thank you. This is a great night. It's all good, as the kids would say. And we'll begin our program with a welcome from Vice President of our school board, who, if you do not know, was a stellar teacher in the Fairport schools for her entire career and an outstanding administrator, and now serves as our Vice President of our school board. Welcome, Marilyn Monkelbon.
This is such an honor. As a vice president, should have the president of the school board up here tonight, but she's otherwise occupied. But as a vice president and representative of the school board, I welcome you to the induction of 4 new members to the Education Wall of Distinction. And we are so fortunate to have these outstanding individuals as part of our education community. I want to thank Marty, Diane, Herb, Donna for being uniquely you. Thank you for enhancing the lives of those you touched, students, colleagues, members of the Fairport community, and beyond to our global community. Thank you for those seemingly small kindnesses that you readily gave us. I say seemingly because when you consider those small kindnesses, they really are huge gifts to all of us. Thank you for your smile, your humor, your sense of humor. Thank you for accepting, supporting, encouraging us. Thank you for your advice, guidance, generosity of spirit and time. Thank you for caring and inspiring us all. Thank you for all you have done for us, each in your own unique way. Thank you.
Thank you, Marilyn. It's great to have our old friend Bill Calla back as our interim superintendent, because he was one of the people who started this. More about that in my remarks in a moment. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome Bill Calla.
Thank you, John. This is it's not supposed to be a special night for me, but it really is a special night for me because I've known all of these people for a very long time. And each one of them is incredibly unique. However, all 4 of them are united by one thing. They all have incredibly large hearts. I'm going to start with Donna. Many of you know my bride over there. My wife and I run Joining Hearts and Hands, an African organization, and back in 2005 we started this. And of course we had nothing, and it was very difficult to try to put this thing together. And Donna Russell did our very first newsletter, and all on her own. And from any of you who get our newsletter now, I do it now, but it's all on Donna's template. It's the same. It's the same that template is exactly the same, and that's only just one example of what Donna has given to us. But everyone in the high school knows how much Donna gives of her time to everyone. I mean, she does the senior trip. And she planned it all this year. So it's again, it's all heart. Herb Graham, I don't know what to say about you, Herb, but this guy's an institution. I mean, he really is. It's the saddest part about Herb is that I can't clone him, and it's like I want a Herb in all 8 buildings. This is the most incredible human being that I know, the biggest heart, and a real savior for a lot of kids in this building. So Herb, I'm a lucky guy to be your friend. I really am. Diane, I've known Diane for 17 years too. And to this day, Diane, you don't know this, but I talk to students who come back and tell me of who their favorite 3rd grade teacher was. Diane Dudley. And Diane, and I do remember when you had the hair down to here, by the way. I was always marveled at that hair. It was just awesome. But Diane, we could always depend on Diane for the straight scoop coming out of the schools. Always got good information from Diane. But again, a person with a great heart, because when kids come back to you 10 years later, 20 years later to tell you their favorite teacher was Diane Dudley, that says an awful lot. And last but certainly not least, I hired Marty Cardona, I don't know, maybe 15, 16 years ago, some more, 17 years ago. Short story with Marty. I remember the day that I interviewed Marty as if it were yesterday. Marty came waddling into my office. It was the first day that she was wearing shoes after an incredibly bad car accident. And I didn't know this. So she came literally, she was in pain, and I didn't know that. And she wasn't going to share anything with me either. So she came literally crawling into the office. And as I see her come in, I said, oh, this is going to be a good interview. She sits down and we start talking. And it's one of those, this happens every so often, not too often. Marty sat down and we start talking kids. When we were through with that meeting, Marty walked out the office, and the other person who I was interviewing her with, I turned to this guy and I said, that's the next principal of Brooks Hill. That is the best administrator I have ever interviewed. And she didn't prove me wrong. But on top of that, Marty is a board member for Joining Hearts and Hands. Those of you who know her know all the work she's done with adoptions. She's the most child-centered human being I know. And again, I am very lucky to call her my very dear friend. So those are my comments about you guys. You're incredibly special. I've been waiting for this night for a long time. Because of who's here tonight, and I regret that for 7 years I missed all the other ones, but I'm really happy tonight that I was able to be here for this night for you people, because you're incredibly special. Thank you.
Thanks, Bill. When we started doing this 14 years ago, I was charged with a short speech about the nature of the event. what it means, what it's about, the essence of it. So I've given the speech 14 times. And Tony, I think there is tape, and I don't think I've repeated myself, but I'm 61 now, and I'm not sure sometimes what I've said before. So, but I do want to share with you a little bit of a sense of how this organization came about and what the essence of the recognition is truly focused on. I'm going to tell a story to get that started. I was teaching the play Our Town, and I hope you have the blessing of knowing it. And in the key scene at the end of the play, one of the characters has died, and she's in heaven. It turns out she's in a graveyard, but she's in the afterlife, and she says to the other deceased people there, I just figured out you can go back. You can go back. And they say, don't go back, because live people are really, they don't understand. And she said, well, I want to go back. They said, well, don't go back to anything exciting. So she said, well, how about my birthday? Okay. How much time do you want? She said, I want 1 day. So she goes back. I think it's her 11th birthday, isn't it, Jonesy? Is it? I think it's her 11th birthday. And she's in her, is it Nikki? Yeah. So she's, more about him later. So she's in her kitchen, and her mom is making breakfast, that quotidian routine of the everyday, what I call the drug of the everyday, which tricks us into believing that this day is not a miracle because we're drugged by the routine of it. And so as she's living it again, but seeing herself live it because she's also dead and is looking back, she finds it excruciating. And she says to the dead who are there on stage on the side, she said, nobody's looking at each other. Nobody even sees each other. And so I was sharing this with a group of beautiful young people, and I said, just a rhetorical question, you never know what you're getting into when you're working with young people and what might come up. I said, does anybody here, it's about 9:40 in the morning, does anybody here feel like no one has seen you today? And this beautiful young woman right in front of me bursts into tears and says, no one has seen me for days. And I burst into tears, and the kids burst into tears. We had to have some hugging there. And that idea that we don't see each other, and that we, because we're busy people, the everyday, marching around. So there's a guy named Matt DiRizio. If you don't think I'm segueing, I am. There's a guy named Matt DiRizio who's one of the greatest guys I've ever known, and he was a kid in this town, and he lived on the north side, and his life was beautiful, but challenging. And when he came to school, a teacher changed his life. His name was John Clark. And Matt reflected upon that transformational change and wrote about it. He wrote about a 10-page paper about how much this man had meant to him at the critical moment. And that's the problem. Why don't you kids tell us when the critical moment is so we can be better? But that isn't how it works. So we have to be ready all the time, don't we? These are my 4 experts over here. I'm talking to them right now. And that's why we have to be ready all the time. But at the critical moment, John Clark changed everything for Matt DiRizio. He went on to become a gifted teacher, a school principal, a superintendent of schools in Long Island, and then a superintendent of schools in Gananda. And then he became our school board member and the president of our school board. How many of you had the blessing of knowing Matt? Yeah. So you know what I'm talking about. So he created all this. He created this. He went to see Bill Callan. He went to see the board. And so we stand on the shoulders of that giant. And he understood the transformational moment of being there for a young person and changing that life. Now, question for our panel of experts here, the four young people. There's only one person who can have a more profound effect on another young person, try to follow this, is a kind of twisted sentence, than a caring adult, or saying it again. Who can have a more profound effect on a young person than a caring adult? What other type of person? Nikki, I'm going to call on you. Another young person. You have so much power to elevate and lift and change your classmates' lives. And tonight is really about, I haven't even talked about these four because you're going to hear all about them. But Bill told you, and they're awesome. God bless you. Congratulations. But these four are coming up. And when these four come up, I don't have to tell you anything about them. You'll figure it out very quickly that they're truly special. And that's why we're here. That's why I'm 39 years a teacher, and don't ask me when I'm retiring, because I'm not. Because it's so beautiful, the opportunity to work with young people. And just yesterday, Deborah Tandoy sponsored an event here where she said, get the adults out of the room, and together with Nick, and were you either of you guys presenters? But you were there, right? But Nick was one of the key presenters, and the kids were with the kids talking about what was important, what mattered, and how we need to be better as human beings. So I am absolutely so excited about tonight for you to have the opportunity to meet these four amazing young people who are about to present our honorees. And I see you. And you see me, and you've changed my lives, you four young people. The four winners have all changed my lives. I have a long, long relationship with each and every one of you, and I'm so proud of you. Let's get on with the program. Thank you. Our first presentation, you'll notice similar last names by some coincidence. Our first presenter is Keenan Cardona, and he will be presenting honoree Margaret Cardona.
Thanks, Mr. Baines, and good evening, everybody. You know, extraordinary can be found in the dictionary defined as impressive, exceptional, and going beyond what is customary. Extraordinary can also be found standing to my right, defined by Marty Cardona. But the elements that define her, what makes her who she truly is today, extend far beyond just a few words. As principal of Brooks Hill Elementary School for 13 years from 1998 until 2011, my grandmother, Marty, was at the helm of projects and committees that have created a lasting legacy in the Fairport schools. From working as an essential member of the committee to create a full-day kindergarten program in Fairport, to implementing the urban-suburban program in Brooks Hill, she is quite simply an advocate for children everywhere, ensuring that every child has a chance to do the best work that they can. Because of her work towards these programs, kindergartners find themselves more prepared as they continue with their school career because of the now sufficient time that they receive during the day. And students participating in the urban-suburban program find themselves ahead of the curve with staggering graduation rates and around 95% pursuing post-secondary education of some kind. But aside from the numbers and statistics, one thing that my grandmother has always believed is looking at the whole child. She has said at the end of each day, if you did the right thing for children, you've done well. Her dedication to getting to know and creating a personal relationship with all her students serves as a true motto for what it means to care for your kids. She told me of how she was proud to say that during her time at Brooks Hill, she could tell you every single student's name in the halls of Brooks Hill, grades kindergarten through 5th, at one point reaching almost 800 people. And it was for those students that she strived each and every day to create a unique and beneficial opportunities for them beyond the classroom walls. And those opportunities provided some of the most memories that she held close to her heart. 5th graders were able to benefit from witnessing a naturalization ceremony that Brooks Hill began hosting in 2001. allowing them a unique perspective, furthering their hands-on learning with their immigration unit and social studies, and by seeing what it really means to help people become an American citizen. She hoped all students could benefit and opened the ceremony to other fifth graders throughout the entire district. She also loved every year right around this time, because at Brooks Hill they would host the annual English Language Learners Thanksgiving dinner for students and their families. Cooking, prepping, and serving food, she provided a warm and welcoming atmosphere that truly extended a sense of community as well as family for all those involved. My grandma will also tell you how much she loved kindergarten, and while we were speaking, I didn't need any more proof than the natural smile that came on her face when she told me of her memory of kindergarten registration and orientation. She told me how she loved their innocence, their eagerness to learn, and how they had a strong and refreshing excitement for school and the possibilities that were to come. But with all the great achievements my grandma's had in her career at Brooks Hill, it comes as no surprise that when you begin to understand the life she lived outside of school and how she came to be. She was born here in Rochester, raised by a single working mother as an only child. She attended school in the city, graduating from the Nazareth Academy and attending college locally at Nazareth, earning her bachelor's as well as master's in speech pathology. She spent time teaching and transitioning into administration in the Palmyra-Macedon School District, where she served as director of special education for the district and later a principal of the elementary school for a few years prior to coming to Fairport. And in her decision to come to Fairport, she credits and thanks her close friend Joanne Shimko, who was already working in the district at the time, urging her to apply to a principal position here. But her work with children extends far beyond the Fairport schools themselves. She has worked for 39 years as an international adoption caseworker on nights and weekends, purely for the joy and satisfaction she felt from the work. In her career, she has placed over 2,500 children with loving families here in the U.S. And in the past 2 years, she has traveled to Kenya twice, just the beginning of what I believe is many more trips. Volunteering was joining Hearts and Hands, something that Dr. Keller spoke about, a nonprofit that she sits on the board of serving the people of Africa through education and learning opportunities. While she was there, she worked with women and children, providing learning materials and classroom lessons for the schools that she visited. And after having the unique experience of personally traveling with her on both trips, the most recent was last year, was just the two of us, I can truly say from a first-hand account how in awe I am of you for truly reaching everybody, and your natural gift for love, kindness, compassion, and everybody, your infectious can-do mentality that inspires me and those around you to continue the work that you've started. And when she's not traveling the world, you might find her here in Rochester on the board of Generation 2, a group that unites and provides a meaningful relationship for students and senior citizens in the community, as well as Unite Rochester, where she works on a team to achieve the goal of overcoming poverty and striving for equity for urban students. And now, in her retirement for Brooks Hill, she currently serves as the Fairport Board of Education president, where she is in her 4th year and 2nd term, working tirelessly to provide for the district that she loves and cares for so much. For all of her work, she's received numerous recognitions and awards, both in education as well as her life and adoption, winning Educator of the Year in 2011, and her awards from both the Adoption Resource Network as well as Love the Children of Rochester, recognizing her as a friend of adoption. She was also recognized by Parenthood for Me with their Commitment to Excellence Award. And after tonight, she should feel proud to add the Wall of Distinction to that list. For her career and achievements, she wants to be able to take the time to thank all of those who have made it possible for her to succeed, beginning with the entire Brooks Hill faculty and staff, especially close friends and colleagues Jan Taylor, Paul Meyer, Mary Bunting, Sherry Wigfield, and Debbie Kobasic, as well as her superintendent, Dr. Bill Calla, her partner, Kevin Delcourt, her 6 children and their spouses, as well as her 13 grandchildren, especially the 4 that she had the joy to serve as principal during her time there. And she would like to recognize her daughter, Christina, as well, for continuing the legacy in education by proudly working as a kindergarten teacher in Fairport. And tonight, as you are inducted into the Wall of Distinction, I want you to know that this is just one small way to say thank you for all the work and time that you've put into the Fairport community. You and your life's work are truly indescribable, but if I had to try, I would say it's simply extraordinary.
Told ya. Keenan, if I had your voice, I never would have lost an election. I want him to have a radio show. I could just drive down the thruway and listen to you could just read the phone book. What a beautifully composed and lovingly constructed and delivered. Thank you so much. Well, we're just getting started. Our second honoree is Diane Dudley, and she will be presented by Lauren Bucci. Lauren and Diane.
Good evening. I'm honored to be here tonight to help introduce to you the Wall of Distinction inductee, Mrs. Dudley. Mrs. Dudley, as a child, grew up in Watertown, New York, and was the fifth out of 6 children in her family. As a young girl, she sang in choirs in church and schools, along with teaching Sunday school classes to first and second graders. In high school, she had an active part in the Future Teachers of America, which shows that Mrs. Dudley unequivocally always wanted to teach. She first started off her teaching at Joanna Perrin when it was in elementary school, and then continued her career at Dudley and Northside, teaching 3rd and 4th graders. In total, she taught in the Fairport School District for 41 years. Throughout her teaching career, Mrs. Dudley was nominated by a student for Who's Who in American Education and received the Betsy Exner Award, which signified her leadership role in Fairport schools. In addition, one of her most fondest and most memorable experiences was when she was asked by the superintendent, Dr. Hunter, to give the opening address the following September to the entire staff with Mr. Lincoln, even though she was a little weary at first as to why Dr. Hunter was calling on her. Despite all of her accomplishments, Mrs. Dudley can certainly take pride in her amazing ability to connect with her students. In May 2003, 4 of her students that she taught 5 years prior had a tribute to Mrs. Dudley due to her ability to provide a sense of comfort and trust to her students. These girls, along with I'm sure all of Mrs. Dudley's students, can attest to the fact that Mrs. Dudley always worked her hardest to help her students bloom, whether it be learning to read and write or speak in front of the class. She did this by going above and beyond and supporting and guiding her students and giving them respect and love, which she received in return. She left a lasting impact on the lives of all of her students, and she continued to keep in touch with them throughout her career while watching them achieve their dreams. Mrs. Dudley would like to thank her family, her husband Jim for waiting for her to get home with her hectic schedule, and her sons Christopher and Andrew for most of the time, she says, their patience and understanding when she had to do her schoolwork and her husband had to take over. Next, she would like to thank Neil Petty and Lyman Cook, who interviewed her and allowed her to start her journey at Fairport, which I think a majority of us in this room would like to thank them for too. Lastly, she would like to thank Mr. Baines for giving her guidance and friendship to develop leadership qualities that she used throughout a lifetime. One of Mrs. Dudley's favorite quotes that she used to implement in her classes was by Abe Lincoln, "Whatever you are, be a good one." Well, after getting to know Mrs. Dudley, I can certainly say that it is much easier to learn from someone that practices what they preach. And Mrs. Dudley, to me, is more than just a good teacher, but a great one, and also a wonderful woman Fairport has been blessed to have. Thank you so much, Mrs. Dudley, for touching the lives of so many students, faculty members, and parents throughout your teaching career. Congratulations.
Thank you, Lauren. I had the privilege of spending quite a bit of time in Diane's classroom. We've worked together for many years. In fact, her 41-year career is such an inspiration to me that I knew I would never retire until I at least reached that mark, God willing. And I think, Diane taught me a lot about teaching writing. And I think that writing is such a profound way for human beings to find out who they are and to learn. And so, Diane, I'm so proud of you. Well, Christopher Smith. You calling me Bainesy in front of everybody? It's okay, because I love you, and you can say anything you want. All right? Herb Graham, Christopher Smith, come on down.
Good evening. I was given the privilege to honor Herb Graham at tonight's ceremony. Herb has been one of the more influential people in Fairport, acting as our sentry for 16 years, moderating the halls, supervising sports teams, and above all, being a friend to all students and staff who pass by him in this building. It's just an example of how he inspires everyone each day. Everything about his job is committed solely to the students, their ego, and their safety. It's hard to find a single person in this school that Herb has not developed a personal relationship with, nor has he ever passed up the chance to brighten up someone's day. Herb was raised in the segregated town of Apopka, Florida, and graduated from Phyllis Wheatley High School in 1954 as a highly scouted basketball and football player. He went on to play basketball at Florida A&M, and upon graduation, continued playing semi-pro basketball in Chicago and in Washington. Herb later aspired to become an outdoor sports writer and professional trap shooter. Southern segregation prohibited Herb from doing this. Determined, he came to Buffalo and earned his gunman rights, went back down to Georgia, and eventually qualified for the 1986 Olympics in target shooting. Hearing this feat just gives you an idea of how commitment plays a large role in his accolades, something that has become a recurring theme in his life. By the 1970s, Herb arrived in Rochester to accept a job at Xerox as an assistant analyst, where he spent 20 years with his wife and 3 kids. Furthermore, he coached the East High basketball team to a state championship, was bound to have given those boys some of the greatest life lessons to carry on. Upon retirement from Xerox, Herb came to Fairport in 1998 and was given the position as sentry. When I asked Herb if he had planned to do so after retirement, he responded with, "I had no idea what a sentry was, but I knew I could learn it." And learn it he did. For the past 16 years, Herb made the reputation as the guy that everyone wants to shake hands with as they enter the building. In fact, when FHS went through its recent principal resignation, Herb for principal became the common slogan. No offense to Mr. Clark, you're doing a great job. I specifically remember both of my brothers going through the high school and admiring Herb's passion and kindness. The past 2 years, I was blessed with the opportunity to get to know Herb through soccer. Each road trip, Herb came along with the boys and hyped us up on the bus before every game. Before the match, his words were powerful, inspirational, and would give you the adrenaline to run through a brick wall. Herb's famous, "Time to get the contract signed, boys. Let's sign it in red," left us under the impression that each game was simply a business trip. By the time we reached middle time for the second time, having been crowned sectional champs twice, there was no question that Herb was a part of our brotherhood. There is also no question that he may be the greatest motivational sports speaker since Vince Lombardi. Every time we got off the bus, there was Herb with a handshake. "All right, fellas, it's time to get to work." This past Sunday, our journey came to an end, and Herb and I shared one last hug. Then I met him the next day, and he told me to keep my head high. He also remarked a few wise words that I thought to be profound. Find your level of love, give it all, and enjoy every moment. I've truly loved my days here, and I trust there will be many more. I was awestruck to learn the knowledge and achievements that Herb has collected from coming from struggling backgrounds. He carries with him many pearls of wisdom, and I will be sure to spend a few minutes with him each day, regardless of my tardiness to class. As Herb resides in Fairport with his wife Gloria, there's no doubt in my mind that his positive demeanor will never be changed. Truly a Red Raider legend, it is my honor and privilege to induct Herb Graham into the 2014 Wall of Distinction class.
Thank you, brother.
You're the man.
Herb, I know you'd love to get at this microphone right now. So without any permission from anybody, we have a long tradition of having dignitaries, and we're blessed to have Sean tonight, town supervisor, mayor, county legislator, give us a brief speech at the close of our ceremony. Without permission from anybody, and I don't care about anybody's permission, I'd like to ask you to give our closing remarks next year. Would you do that, Herb? Thank you. Two people who are all about giving are going to stand right here, right now. Last year I had a class and we were reading a book, The Great Gatsby, and the main character was Nick Carraway. He's the narrator and he's actually the main character. I'm not going to argue with you, all right? And then I had Nicky Trapani, Nicky Damiani, and Nicky Barbaro in the class. And then it was Christmas time. We had to deal with Saint Nick. So I had to name this one Nicky Doms, and then Nicky Trapani, we called him Nicky Trap, and then we called Nicky Barbaro Nicky Barbs. Somebody said it sounded like Goodfellas in there or something. But it's my great honor to welcome to the podium Mr. Nick Damiani and our honoree, Donna Russell.
Good evening, everyone. Well, not last, but certainly not least, even though it's tough to top Herb. I'm very proud and I'm honored to be inducting one of the most thoughtful and insightful individuals that I've had the privilege to getting to know the past couple years here at Fairport High School, and that's Mrs. Donna Marie Russell. I had to get special privilege to use her first name in that sentence. Only Fairport Central School District staff and her mother are allowed to call her Donna Marie. Everyone else calls her Mrs. Russell. Well, to start off, I want to rewind a couple years back. It's 1959, just a couple years. This was a pretty special year, I must say. Alaska and Hawaii were admitted into the United States, 49 to 50 states. Twilight Zone was premiered, and a loaf of bread was 20 cents. But then most importantly, Mrs. Russell was born into this world. She was put here for a purpose. That's pretty spectacular to me, and I know everyone else out here in this audience. Well, she grew up just around the corner in Corning, New York, with her brother, who is 6 years older than she is. Now, reflecting back on her childhood, she's extremely grateful for the time, love, and support that her parents took out of their very busy schedules to spend with the two of them in their childhood. While Mrs. Russell was growing up and went through grade school and college, she had no idea what she wanted to do when she got older. But all she knew was that she wanted to be with kids and she wanted to be able to make a difference in children's lives. Now, Mrs. Russell started working in Fairport in 1997. That's when I was born. So she's been here for 17 years. She's still here, going pretty strong. But at first, she stayed home with her kids, Brian, Rob, and Rosie, for about 8-9 years before she came to Fairport. And she's been here ever since. Her role in Fairport has been spread all across the board, and since she is the closest thing to a teacher but still isn't considered a teacher, she currently holds the title as teacher's assistant. I don't know who these people think that she assists, but Mrs. Russell, she is involved in so many things, from the Hourglass yearbook, the Raider Palooza, the senior trip to Boston that we actually just got back from, that I'll talk about in a little bit, Brotherhood Sisterhood Week, and so many other things that she ends up having other teachers and faculty assist her. So I just don't really think that her title is most fitting for what she does and the impact that she has in this community. But aside from the logistics of being a teacher assistant or the computer lab lady, Mrs. Russell brings much more to the table than just what these descriptions appear to be. Most importantly to me and most of you out here, Mrs. Russell is a friend, a loved one, and a person who brightens my day every time I see her and she greets me with a sincere, "Oh, hi, honey, how you doing?" And I actually feel that she really cares about me and she cares about everyone else in this building. And every time I see Mrs. Russell, she's either doing 5 things at once, laughing it up with another teacher, usually Mrs. Lockhart, or just making her rounds around the school just to see all the kids. Now, Mrs. Russell has not only impacted my life, but a good amount of Fairport High School, even though she doesn't think so. but in particular, the senior class, especially from the Boston trip that we just got back from. Briefly, I just want to recap the senior trip, our experiences, and primarily what was revealed and unraveled at the end of that trip. As I said earlier, Mrs. Russell was the bolts in the gears that made our whole senior trip run as smoothly as it did. And basically everything that was done on that trip, from booking the hotels and tours, accounting for over 300 kids at one time, at every time with Mr. Clark and all the other administration, anything and everything on that trip was touched and done by Mrs. Russell. And that's only one small thing that she's done in this whole school district. But being one person to take on that entire feat of a senior trip was fantastic. But once we returned from Boston, I couldn't tell you how many people I talked to and how many conversations that I heard on the bus of how many people had a whole newfound respect for Mrs. Russell and Mr. Bob Clark as well, but that's beside the point. Because anywhere that we turned on the trip, anywhere that we were, Mrs. Russell was always right there. And the only thing that she cared about, and the only thing that she really cares about at school is, I remember I countlessly would have her say this question to me: "Are you guys having fun? Are you guys enjoying yourself?" That's what Mrs. Russell, she put all of her time and effort into all of us seniors finally having a good time together as a class, and that meant the world to me. And this made me realize that Mrs. Russell was much more than just Mrs. Computer Lab. She was the backbone to our senior class, and she was the backbone to all the other classes to come. Now, Mrs. Russell's goal in life has been to change the lives of our youth in a positive way and to bring our school closer together one step at a time. Now, I asked her what it's like working at Fairport, and she said, I'm blessed to work here on a daily basis with so many incredible people who truly care about all these kids. And a little piece of advice that she gave me is, take it all in, take in all that you have around you as if each day was a gift, and get involved. And day in and day out, I see Mrs. Russell, usually because when I'm bored or during lounge, I'll go down and I'll stop into the computer lab to, just hang out. But I see her on a daily basis, and I see the ways that she demonstrates her characteristics of leadership and being a caring adult to any person and every person that I see. If she walks by someone in the hallway, they might be having their head down, she'll go up to them, "Hey, how you doing today, honey?" And that is one thing that I'm never going to forget once I leave Fairport High School. And I could not be any more proud to be the one that is recognizing Mrs. Russell and inducting her into this Wall of Distinction for her countless works that she has done at Fairport High School. And finally, I just want to recognize the people in Mrs. Russell's life that she would especially like to thank. And if you're called, can you just stand up real quick? Just stay standing. Well, here's her list. Well, first off, her husband, Jim Russell, all of her children, Brian, Rob, Rosie, her mother, and then the entire Russell family as well. So that section. Finally, I just want to say congratulations, Mrs. Russell. Congratulations to everyone else that is being inducted this evening. And I just want to thank you guys for everything you guys have done in our lives as students and everyone else's lives within the Fairport High School and the graduates as well. So thank you guys.
Nick, you just told me, Bainsy, I'll be out of college in 4 years, then you're retiring, I'm taking over. So I think he might be right. We're delighted to have a Fairport grad from a proud Fairport family. I have the privilege of knowing Sean, but I worked very closely with his brother Dan. His sister Megan was one of the most spectacular educators I've ever known. She's currently focusing on her children. and we really hope and pray that she'll come back and join us as a teacher again here. Give a warm Fairport welcome to our county legislator, Sean Delahanty. Thank you.
Well, good evening. It's a great honor to be here tonight, and I'd like to thank Dr. Calla, school board, the committee, John Baines for being here. Like John mentioned, I am a graduate of Fairport High School, 1991. And I've also learned I'm a county legislator, and when you're the last speaker, in order for me to get reelected again, I'll make sure my speech isn't too long tonight. I know that's important. So, you know, I was thinking about this is amazing. As I look out here, I look at a lot of my teachers are here tonight from when I was at Fairport. Fellow classmates are here tonight, a lot of parents, and a lot of people that I know. Also, it is a great honor to be here to recognize this group. And I really have a connection to everyone here tonight. Congratulations to all of you. You know, Margaret, I bought the home that your daughter and son-in-law lived in. I went to school with many Cardonas. I'm a neighbor with a Cardona, so the Cardonas are everywhere in Fairport. My sister taught at Northside School across the hall from Diane Dudley, so I know Diane very well and have heard many, many, many stories. And Herb, your reputation precedes yourself. I know so much about you from Coach Santini and so many other people that talk about you all the time, and students and parents. And Donna, I mean, my sister, I think, taught your son, Robbie. And I went to school with Russells, and there's Russells all over this community as well. So Fairport really is, it's a large town, but it's a small community. And there's a lot of connections here. There's a lot of people that bring it all together. For me tonight, you know, when I was thinking about coming here, so many memories come back as I walk into the building. And really, when I talk tonight, this is really for everyone. This is for administrators, for teachers, for parents, and for students. Just to give you a little bit of background about me, I grew up here in Fairport. I attended Jefferson Avenue School, Martha Brown, and the high school. During that time, we moved away. My father worked for the Otis Elevator Company and got transferred to Manhattan. So we moved away for 3 years. And I remember when he was transferred back to Rochester, it's really kind of interesting. The family, my brother and my sister, were adamant that we come back to Fairport because we were so passionate about this community and so passionate about the school district. And we were thrilled that we had that opportunity to come back. So in my family, I have an older brother and a younger sister. Both are educators. And I'm sure some of the teachers that are here tonight will appreciate this. I had the brother who was the consummate A student. I think teachers would bid on him in order to have him in their classes. My sister was the same way. I mean, there was arguing and fighting in order to get my sister Megan into their classes. And then there was me. And when the list came in and the teacher went down the list and saw Sean Delahanty, I think they would pause, take a deep breath, and say, okay. I was not the student that was the A student. I wasn't the F student. I would say I was somewhere in the middle. I certainly would always make classes fun and exciting, I would say. I had very intimate relationships with all of my principals for different reasons than my brother and sister had. So my parents did spend a lot of time in the Fairport schools. And this started in, I think back to elementary school and had amazing teachers and on at Martha Brown as well. And, you know, when I look at this list of previous inductees, a lot of my teachers are on here. It's almost impossible to select one person. But tonight I am going to talk about a teacher, this is very passionate. It means a lot to me. That did make a great impact on my life. And really, I can honestly tell you, changed my life and helped send me in a direction that would send me on to Ithaca College for my bachelor's degree and then on to St. John Fisher for my master's degree. I remember I was a junior here at Fairport, and the teacher was David Allen. And somehow, some way, there might have been a mistake in administration. They decided to let me take an AP American History course. I think judging on my brother's previous performance, until I got into the class. And after a few days, I remember Mr. Allen pulled me aside and said, "Sean, what are you doing here? You know, this is for serious students. This is for hard-working, dedicated young students. I don't see that with you. I think you want to be outside, doing other things, other activities. You need to earn your way to stay in this class, and you need to show me what you can do." And it really, it hit home with me, because he did. He took the time, he pulled me aside, and he took a special interest in me. He knew that I had the potential. He also knew that I was distracted. And I think he really did an outstanding job of sitting down with me and laying out a path and telling me how I could be successful, asking me what did I want to do in the future? Did I want to go to college? What did I want to study in college? And I had a passion for history. I always loved history, loved English as well. Not so much math and science, but that's another story. So I really was able to thrive in his class. And I remember he went above and beyond to sit down with me, to work with me, to have other students in the class work with me to help me be successful. I remember it was a challenging course. He was an amazing teacher, and the volume of work and the pace that we kept, it was pretty intense for an 11th grader. But he had the confidence in me, he had the faith in me that I could be successful. And I remember he just kept working with me throughout the year until we had our exam, which was a big deal. And I could tell you some of the other kids in the class weren't as concerned about the exam as I was. I really was, and I really worked hard at it. And he just constantly came back with positive reinforcement. He never was afraid to take the time to sit down with me, to work with me, to help me prepare for that. And to be honest with you, I don't think I've ever been more prepared for a test in my life than with David Allen. His intensity was unbelievable, and his passion for what he was doing day in, day out. To this day, I can remember what great classes he had. And, after I moved away after college, I lived in Washington, in Virginia, in New York, New Jersey, other places. And I've seen other school districts, and I've talked with other teachers that teach in other locations. And I can honestly say this school district, this community, is second to none. And it's because of people like David Allen, who really took an interest in me, was passionate not only about me. I was just one of the students of the many people that he reached that year and did for many, many years. But his passion and commitment to me and to this school and to this community is something that I will never forget. And as I've advanced in my career, I currently work in the county legislature, as a county legislator, and took over for Mike Barker, who is a longtime teacher here in Fairport, who is now the Parrington Town Supervisor. So it's, this community, it's a large community, but it's a small community. Everyone cares about each other, everyone works together, and everyone is committed to excellence in education. And I am proud when I go out throughout the county, throughout the state, and quite honestly, anywhere in the country, and tell them where I'm from. And I brag about and let them know how fortunate we are in this community to have such an outstanding school district with great administrators, great teachers, parents, and students that are committed to learning. So thank you for the opportunity tonight, and congratulations to all of you. Thank you.
That concludes our program. What we will do now is exit these doors, go this way to the west, and we'll come to a corridor, and then we'll go down the corridor, and there'll be 2 ramps. We'll be arriving outside of the auditorium gymnasium complex, if you're not familiar with the school, which is at the north end of the school. There you will see the actual wall of distinction, where the plaques are located. All of our prior honorees will be there. You'll see them, and I think we might even have some cookies. Do we have some cookies, Renee? We've got cookies. Kids, you kids have been amazing. So patient. I have 8 grandchildren, and I'm afraid they wouldn't have behaved as well as you guys have. I want to let everybody here know how thrilled we are that you came to celebrate what we do and what we do. Come on, there's one word, we all got to say it. It's all about love. That's what these 4 people are all about, loving what they do, loving young people. That's what all of this is about. Thank you so much for coming. We'll see you down in Cookie Land.